Welcome to the wonderful world of tables in D&D. It's a pleasure to see you all back here today. In their 2001 song, Chop Suey, the band System of a Down had a very pertinent question. Why did you leave the kids up on the table? I think they were talking about a tabletop table where players can find interesting items such as keys if they happen to roll the right result. In this video, I'm going to be talking about how tables in tabletop games can make the game more interesting for both players and DM/GMs. This is just going to be a personal perspective video. I will do a follow-up video where I talk to other creators about the tables. But what are tables? Well, tables are a numbered list where you will roll something, in this case, a percentile D100 dice, and the corresponding number that you roll will be something. In this case, this is the bric-a-brac table, so you'll just get a random piece of garbage depending on what you roll. And that may or may not be useful depending on what you says, but that's the whole point. Nobody knows what the roll is going to be. So it might be of minor import, it might be of major import. I love tables, both as a DM/GM and also as a player. As Bob Worldbuilder noted, one of the best things about the new Monster Manual is the fact that there's some tables in there to add a little bit extra flavor and randomness to some of the monsters. As a dungeon grandmaster, I always use tables. Whether that's a very small table during a campaign, whether that's a D100 table of bric-a-brac, or whether that's a massive table that has several different subtables for magical effects that are completely random. Because a bored dungeon master or game master is a bad dungeon master or game master. I honestly started using tables just to keep myself entertained, having something unique and unplanned happen in the game. That'll keep me on my toes, and that doesn't necessarily have to come only from the players. Sometimes having a bit of randomness in there subverts your own expectations of the games, and you might unintentionally assume that the players might approach something from this direction, when in fact they'll approach it from a completely different direction. So I think having this extra randomness in there actually not only keeps you on your toes, but also allows you to flow a little bit more creatively than you normally would if you just have a set thing that's going to happen, and then you're just making assumptions before you play the game of what your players are going to do with those parameters. Improv is a huge part of my game. So I guess it would depend on the DM/GM how much randomness you want to put in there. Sometimes small little things will be good for a little bit extra flavor, but maybe you're not going to go overboard with the D100 charts or the D1000 charts that I use.
So I just want to make a note here. I know a lot about improv. I've taken improv classes, and I'm comfortable with improv. I don't think the vast majority of players and dungeon masters generally are going to be, and I find it very necessary to separate what is like just pure improv with what is a tabletop game. And that's a difficult thing. I've listened to major podcasts when they're supposedly doing a D&D game, and sometimes it literally will just devolve into a literal improv game that doesn't really have anything to do with the supposed game that they're playing. And that's a little bit frustrating because obviously that's going to be interesting and entertaining to listen to. It might not be the best choice for your specific game. So I would say that tables are actually a very useful tool to help you kind of keep grounded in the game and not just sort of go off the rails completely trying to pull something. A useful intellectual exercise for all DM/GMs to do is to Google search Quantum Ogres. Look at some of the conversations about that subject. The Quantum Ogre, at its simplest state, is simply a choice that you give the players, the left path or the right path, and it doesn't matter which path they choose. There's going to be an ogre at the end of either pass. It's the illusion of choice. I think everybody is going to have their own solution to avoiding the Quantum Ogre. And I think that is kind of closely tied to avoiding pure improv when you're doing D&D. I see a lot of people giving the advice that, oh, you don't have to turn your players to a thing. You just have to completely change what's happening in the game so they go where you want them to go, instead of just having a more free-flowing game where they can go where they want to go, but there might be consequences and it might not work out. A lot of this has to do with communication, where you kind of have to figure out what the players want to accomplish. And even though you're playing this shell game with the players where, oh, you're thinking to yourself, oh, the players don't know that they're in a shell game where they don't have agency, they are eventually going to realize this. I'm going to link 2 articles in the description below. One of them is going to be the shell game in the Sandbox, and the other one is going to be how illusion can rob your game of fun. I think every DM should sort of glance over these. And it is interesting, I didn't read these articles before I wrote this whole video about tables, but one of the solutions that they had for this issue is to come up with a random encounter table. So yeah, it is one of these tools that does help out with this problem, both the Quantum Ogre problem, where you are destroying agency and playing a shell game where nothing where the players do really matters, and also the other issue, which I believe is more pertinent today, of improv, where you're just making stuff up playing an improv game, which I think actually takes away from the fun of a tabletop game in a more insidious nature. 2 sides of the same coin. You're destroying agency, you're destroying stakes in the game. So yeah, read those articles and let me know what you think.
The player perspective. Players like rolling dice. Whenever they get to roll a percentage dice, damn, that just always seems fun for them. And some players love filling up their inventory with random crap. A seemingly useless bit of dungeon detritus can really turn into something game-breaking later down the road if you're dealing with players that have creative impulses. A bit of caveat to this is to new players who might have a video game style mentality towards items. They might assume that everything they can pick up is something that might be important. And obviously, that's not the case in my games, so I try to guide them to the perspective that there's just stuff in the environment that makes sense to be that in their environment. So then, hopefully they pick up on that, and they're not picking up every random bone spool or pewter fork that they find. Though honestly, you never know when a bone spool or a pewter fork are going to come in handy. Funny table memes for kids! I saw this meme about tables, and while the intent was to poke fun about the amazing worlds of tables and on the tabletop blogs, I was immediately fired up about how this could improve my game. Links are in the description. Shifting Possibilities table. There's a Hidden Depths table that was created by Zowseed on the Seed of World blog. No, I don't know if that's how you pronounce the name. Sorry. And I don't pronounce things correctly even when I know how they're pronounced correctly. Immediately, my third eye opened up to the possibilities of this chart in my game. It would then immediately matter for this specific chart time of day. When my players went somewhere, that would matter. That way they would have to consider, like, oh, well, we should do this, this, and this. If we're looking for a fight, maybe going later at night where we'll be able to find random, more hard-to-find monsters would be something that they want to do. It would give the players just a little bit more self-determination. They are in control of what's happening to a certain amount, and when they choose to do stuff actually matters in the game, and that will give them the perspective that, oh, wait, all the choices that I'm making during this actually matter. And that's the mindset that you want players to have. Players can even roll the dice, too. I don't think that this original table was meant for the players to roll the dice, but I think it's fun. Imagine the excitement of rolling a seemingly random selection of dice that they've never rolled before. Overloaded encounter dice / push dice. This is a concept that I've not really heard of until recently. You roll another dice when circumstances make sense, and encounter dice might result in something good, it might result in something bad, but it pushes something forward. Meandering Banter did a nice write-up about these. This is what the hidden depths chart looks like with an encounter d6 included. Push dice are a similar concept, except they will generally always be something negative to be a deterrent to use them all the time. And they can be used if like a player misses an attack. And this is an interesting way of getting over the fact, okay, the enemy's almost dead, but like you roll super low and you miss them, but you know this enemy's almost dead, so it doesn't make any sense for the combat to keep on going for another round. So that means the players can just do a push dice. Then the combat will end at a point that makes sense and you don't have to fudge stuff. But even though these... I'm on the fence about this, because even though they are specifically set up to be a deterrent to using them all the time, I know players who are gamblers who would use these dice all the time. So I'm a little bit on the fence about this. Goblin's Henchman did a great write-up about these. I think these kind of overloaded dice or push dice have their place in tables, but I think it's probably more... Until I get used to them, I think it's probably going to be more towards the Dungeon Master side that I'm going to use these. Because, like I said, gambling players will always try to push their luck regardless of anything else. So, unless you know... I think a lot of this comes down to like what tools you're going to use is like how well you know your players. Since I run a lot of games for brand new players and for strangers at events, I'm kind of in a weird position where I kind of have to keep a lot of this stuff on the Dungeon Master side rather than the player side. So even though I like to keep things as collaborative as possible, you never know when somebody's going to come into the table with very weird perspectives on the game. Hey, I love tables, but what about you, person on the other side of the screen? Do you use tables? What kind of tables do you like? Do you like using encounter tables? Do you like using loot tables? Do you like using treasure tables, which is slightly different than loot tables? Do you like the tables in the original 5e books? What do you like? Do you like the randomness of possibly the players coming up with a super interesting magical item? And hey, if you really like tables, if you love tables as much as me, make sure that you join the channel membership right here on YouTube. That will give you access to the community members post section, which will give you access to a number of tables. You'll get a big old section of D12 random encounter item rolls for various areas, and you'll also get an adventure that has the D100 bric-a-brac table seen here. That's 100 random just pieces of garbage that could, just come up. If I rolled a 49, that's a shiny silver pair of pantaloons. If you get the silver pantaloons reference, then you should check out Wylock's videos. I think he'll have some really cool stuff for you. But yeah, hope everything's going okay. Again, leave a comment, hit a like, and again, if you really like my stuff and you want to pay $1 and get access to all those random little bits of stuff that I have in the community section, make sure you join the membership, and you can always just join and then cancel after a month. It's a great way to support the channel. If you're interested in supporting me another way, check it out, because I'm going to be leaving the Discord link in the description today, so you can join the Discord and see what everybody's been painting and ask any questions, and it's generally a fun time. A lot of really good video game deals and deals on digital RPG stuff that's constantly updated in my Discord. I guess that's it. Alarm's going off. Is there anything else I wanted to talk about? I guess not. Dab on the hay.
Take a look at this lovely table that I created by completely ripping off the unlockable encounter tables from Seed of Worlds. That link is going to be in the description, but I made this from scratch in libcalc, a free open source version of Excel pretty much, and I basically just plugged in the numbers and made my own little heat map. And even though this is an encounter chart, I think this would actually work out really well with some sort of treasure table, or maybe just a general maybe just like a location thing if people are wandering aimlessly. I don't know. It's really cool. You can check it out right now by either joining the Discord or signing up for the $1 membership on this YouTube channel. Do either of those things so you can have this pretty little table for your own.